Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the live game preview, Leeds United versus Everton tomorrow evening at Ellen Road. Frank Lampard's Toffees take the trip down to Leeds after a draw with Brentford at the weekend. Still in search for our first Premier League win of the season. Can it come in our fifth game of the season? We can only hope, can't we? We can only hope. Going up against the Leeds side who have had a decent start to the season themselves, currently sat on 7 points, 2 wins, 1 draw and 1 defeat. Of course, most noticeably that big win against Chelsea. Oh, sorry about that. Phone call coming through. Most noticeably that big win against Chelsea a couple of weeks ago. Started their season with a 1-1 draw against Crystal Palace away from home. Not a bad result. That was the end of last season. With a 2-1 victory at Wolves. At Ellen Road against Wolves. Obviously a draw with Southampton the week after. Then that big 3-0 victory against Chelsea last weekend, or the weekend before last, should I say. A second round win in the Carabao Cup against Barnsley, and a 1-0 defeat to Brighton away from home at the weekend. So coming off the back of a defeat, as I said, started the season pretty well, and there seems to be overall a sort of good feeling around Leeds at the moment, a feel-good factor around the football club. Obviously Jesse Marsch come in towards the back end of last season to replace Marcelo Bielsa, who of course was a massive success at Leeds United, got them promoted back into the Premier League for the first time in a number of years, and really took that football club from a team that were, again, not really looking like doing much or not really promising much, to a team that all of a sudden absolutely ran through the Championship, promoted into the Premier League, and had a really solid opening season in the Premier League. Obviously, last season was their first season back in the Premier League with fans. I was actually at Ellen Road last season, which was Leeds United's first game back in the Premier League with fans in the stadium, because, of course, the season prior was the COVID year when everything was played behind closed doors, and the atmosphere there on that day was absolutely electric from both sets of fans. But, of course, it didn't go to plan for Marcelo Bielsa, and towards the end of last season he was sacked. And in a similar way to Everton, I suppose, their season went maybe not as dramatic, but then again, obviously we're talking about this from an Everton point of view, so we can't really talk about it from a Leeds point of view. I'm sure there's Leeds fans out there that will say it was more dramatic because they didn't actually guarantee survival until the final day of the season. They sacked their manager halfway through the season, brought a young, hungry manager in who's obviously managed over in, America, in Jesse Marsch, managed over in Germany as well, and he come in, and whilst it didn't go to plan straight away, and whilst obviously, nothing changed overnight, they built, and, obviously they got their moments on the final game of the season of guaranteeing that survival and guaranteeing their position as a Premier League team. Again, similar to Everton, lost a couple of big players this summer in selling, obviously, Calvert-Lewin to Manchester City, Rafinha obviously going to Barcelona as well, Patrick Bamford still with his injury issues. Pretty much the same as Everton, really. We lost Richarlison, they lost Rafinha. We've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but he's always injured. They've got Patrick Bamford, but he's always injured. They had once a manager described as one of the best in football. He was sacked. We had one who left and, was ultimately replaced. And we both just about survived relegation last season. So, a tale of two teams that I suppose have got, a lot of things in common. One thing we definitely haven't got in common is Leeds United. Everton certainly haven't got Leeds United's ability to press and pressure their opposition high up the pitch, because that's something I've been really intrigued and interested by over the last couple of weeks, was the way in which this Jesse Marsch side plays week in, week out, and they play often, quite a high line. They press very well, they pressure teams, and they're constantly putting sides under pressure. And I can't lie, that is something that worries me tomorrow evening. Obviously, it's another away game, which again is difficult given the fact that, notoriously we haven't got the greatest away record whatsoever. And, ultimately, I remember watching that game against Chelsea a couple of weeks ago, and whilst everybody else was, massively impressed with Leeds United or, a little bit worried about Chelsea, whatever, I was sitting there and thinking, how are Everton going to cope with this pressure in a couple of weeks' time? Because Chelsea are ultimately one of the best teams in the league. They've got some of the best players in world football, and they couldn't cope with it. Leeds were absolutely relentless in breaking them down. And every time a Chelsea defender had the ball, they had 2 or 3 players on them. They've made a couple of really, really smart signings over the last few weeks or so this summer. Players that not many people will have heard an awful lot about, but ultimately have come in and hit the ground running. Brennan Aronson being one of them, obviously coming over from America. I believe Leeds United at the moment are absolutely massive in America as well. So in terms of their global brand, that of course is gaining. They've obviously got Rodrigo, Mark Rocker, Jack Harrison, of course, Dan James, who Everton have been linked with today for some reason. We know the likes of, Matthias Klick and Luke Ayling and Patrick Bamford, players like that. They've brought Tyler Adams in as well. Of course, another, American player who's come in to join up with Jesse Marsh. And they seem to be building something at the moment which is very much tailored around hard work, desire, passion, commitment, fight, energy. And it worries me a little bit. Because, as I said in the game review to the Brentford game earlier on this evening, normally when Everton come up against these teams that press high and put pressure on you and have got unlimited amounts of energy, we don't tend to do very well against them because we can't match that. And we can't match that. It's as simple. We've got a couple of players that can bring that energy. We've got a couple of players that in the midfield in Amadou Onana and Alex Iwobi will be able to sort of deal with it there. But going forward, we haven't got an awful lot. The title of the live stream is, will Neal Maupay make his debut? I honestly do think he will make his debut, but I don't think he'll start this game of football, which you might disagree with, you may agree with. But as I said, we'll do our predicted starting 11 a little bit later on, but I just don't think he'll start this game. And I'd be lying if I was to say I wasn't a little bit worried going into this one, because Leeds at the moment are on a bit of a good run of form. Okay, they had a defeat last time out to Brighton, and Brighton are another team that are on a good run of form, but ultimately, especially at Ellen Road, there seems to be a real sort of connection brewing between Leeds United, their manager and this sort of new era under the new manager in Jesse Marsh. And again, a little bit of a difference between Leeds and Everton. They sold a couple of their best players in the summer and replaced them with players that have come in and hit the ground running really, really well. And Everton don't seem to have done that, certainly not yet. And given the fact that we've got 3 days until the transfer window ends, I'm not too sure we will do that. So it will be difficult for Frank Lampard. He did have a press conference after the Brentford game on Saturday, a brief press conference. He spoke a little bit about Mason Holgate, stating that he has an issue with his knee and is due to be out for a couple of weeks, so isn't certainly ruled out of this one. He spoke about Neal Maupay, saying that he trained on the Saturday and he was due to train a couple of times before this game as well. I think they trained yesterday and potentially today as well. He did say he'll be in the squad. He didn't say anything about whether or not he would start. And as I said, although some people might be thinking throw him straight in, some people might be thinking yes, he'll start. I'm not so sure. Obviously, Solomon Rondon had very, very little to play, the very, very little part to play in Saturday's draw at Brentford. I think we're probably more likely to see Rondon start and then Neal Maupay maybe come off the bench with 20 minutes to go. There seems to be an issue with fitness at the moment in terms of new signings coming in and not being fit enough to get started straight away. I'm not too sure whether that'll be the case with Maupay, because obviously he's already played in the Premier League this season and he's had... he's been at Brighton for a number of years, so again, as I said, he knows the league, he knows the system, he knows the country, he knows the the way in which the Premier League goes. So it's different to Amadou Onana in that sense, but whether or not he's fit enough and had enough time to settle in and to the system and what Frank Lampard wants, is a completely different question. But ultimately, this is another really, really important game for Everton and another really, really important game for Frank Lampard. I don't want to sit here and, keep talking about these games as, must wins when we're so early on into the Premier League season. It seems silly to be sitting here, 4 or 5 games into a season and talking about games in the sense of a must win, but you look at Leeds United, as I said, and they have had a very similar sort of season to us last season in terms of losing their manager and having to bring somebody else in, a young coach, and rebuild around them and barely survive relegation. And they've had a decent start to the season, 2 games won, 1 loss, 1 drawn, of course, and it seems to be a real sort of As I said, a connection brewing there. They've brought a couple of good players in to replace the players that they lost. Whereas Everton obviously are still in search of that win. And although, as I said, we are still really, really early on in the season, and I think to sit here and say any game is a must-win is maybe a little bit premature at the moment. This one very certainly seems like another game where we can pick up points in. And, as I said earlier on today, we lost to Aston Villa a couple of weeks ago, who are absolutely dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. And we should never have lost that game of football, even if we'd have... I'm not saying we should never have lost because we deserve more on the day, but what I'm saying is, that's a fixture that we'll look back on at the end of the season and say, how did we get beat by them? Nottingham Forest, they've offered very, very little. It was a Goodison Park. Again, in years gone by, we win that game comfortably. So this will be tough. It was tough last season. It'll be tough this season. Is it a game we can get points out of? Absolutely. Absolutely, we can get points out of. Leeds are a good side, and as I said, their press is slightly worrying to me, given that, we haven't got the fastest squad at the best of times, but they've showed already this season, in terms of Southampton, who I'm not massively impressed with either. They managed to get a point there. Obviously, Brighton took a point. Again, 2 away fixtures, to be fair, but at Ellen Road, they've been very strong. 2 wins out of 2, 3 out of 3 if you include the Carabao Cup fixture, and they've played 2 decent teams in the Premier League as well, in Wolves and Chelsea. Obviously, the Chelsea game being the most noticeable because it was an absolute destruction, and again, one that I watched extremely worried. But a win has got to come from somewhere, and Frank Lampard has got to be able to set his team up to go out there and, I suppose be really hard to beat tomorrow. I don't think it will be as same tactic as it was against Brentford, in the sense of how good we were going forward against Brentford, and it may be because I still think we'll play 5 at the back tomorrow, so you've still got that defensive cover. I still think we'll play with a 2 in midfield, and then Onana will start again. I think Iwobi will start again, so you've still got that covered in the midfield there. But I just think we're going to have to be a little bit better defensively tomorrow. We were far too were far too easy to break down on Saturday. Brentford found it far too easy to get in behind us and create opportunities. They hit the post a couple of times, they hit the bar a couple of times, and as people have quite rightly pointed out on another day, that game's 3 or 4-1 to Brentford, before the half-time, before, the half-time whistle, and it's a completely different game. We're having a completely different conversation after it, so we don't want that on another day to be tomorrow, where we give Leeds those 2 or 3 chances and they don't hit the post or they don't hit the bar. They end up, rifling into the back of the net, and all of a sudden we're out of a game, within the first half. So we've got to be better defensively. We've got to be quicker defensively as well. One thing that worries me a little bit about tomorrow is that obviously Mason Holgate is out injured, as is Ben Godfrey, of course, which means Michael Keane will step in. And I'm not just saying this to have a go at Michael Keane unnecessarily. I'm not just saying this to try and use him as a scapegoat or whatever. Because I actually think he done okay when he come on against Brentford. I don't think he really, I don't think he really made any sort of issue or had any sort of problem. But Michael Keane is the type of defender, as we all know from experience over the years. This isn't anything, new to any of us. He's the type of defender that when he's put under pressure, he will make mistakes. When he's put under pressure, he will create issues for himself and for the team. And yes, okay, he'll have Connor Cody next to him, and he will have James Tarkowski next to him. And as I said, I'm fairly confident Frank Lampard will go with that 5 at the back formation and won't change it. I'm just not too sure. I'm not confident that he's at the level to be able to deal with the pressure that I believe Leeds will put on us. Now, again, I might be wrong. Because Mason Holgate has come in, and, I'd have had that same thought about Mason Holgate, a few weeks back, but he's come in for Ben Godfrey and he's done fine when he's had to deal with pressure, and, defensively he's been okay. And Michael Keane, to be fair, towards the end of last season was good. He was much more confident, he was much more assured. Obviously he got that goal in the game against Palace, which was a really good finish, and he seemed a lot better towards the back end of last season. Whether or not he'll still be at that level now, I don't know, because he's had 4 games of being nowhere near the first team, not even being, second, third choice defender. He's 5th choice at the moment, isn't he? Because you've got, in fact, he's 6th choice at the moment, because you've got Cody, Tarkowski, Mina. You've then got Godfrey, probably Godfrey/Mina. You've got Holgate and you've got Michael Keane. So, he's gone from, having a good end to the season and being positive to all of a sudden, 2 new centre-backs coming in and he's fifth choice. So will he still have that confidence? I'm not so sure. I hope so, because I think Jesse Marsch is a very, very clever man. And I think this Leeds United team are quite a clever side. And, again, it wouldn't surprise me if Jesse Marsch was to pinpoint Michael Keane as maybe a weak point going into tomorrow's game from a Leeds point of view, because he might be looking at it thinking, firstly, he hasn't played a lot of football and he's only just coming in because of injury. And secondly, he's shown in the past that when he's low on confidence, he is prone to making mistakes, especially if you put him under pressure. So, again, that worries me a little bit. But listen, again, as people have pointed out, Michael Keane hasn't done anything in recent weeks to suggest that will be the case. So hopefully that isn't the case, and hopefully he steps in tomorrow and he does an excellent job. I will be there at Ellen Road. I'll be making that trip down to Ellen Road again, which means I'll have been to every Premier League game this season, which is just mad considering it feels already like we're in May. But yeah, defensively we're going to have to be much, much better than we were against Brentford, because we allowed them far too much time, allowed them far too much space, gifted them far too many opportunities, and ultimately we can't do that with the Leeds United team that have just put 3 past Chelsea the last time they played at Ellen Road and absolutely comfortably dispatched of a side, that will be fighting at the top end of the table this season. I mean, Ned puts in the comments, firstly, he says that we've just spent a tenner on a film for it to be ruined by, and I can't repeat what he said because it's nasty, but we have. It's fact. It's fact. We have. But he also says Coleman plays for me tomorrow. That's an interesting one, because obviously Seamus Coleman at the moment is sort of being overlooked a little bit, and I think that's obviously because of how well Nathan Patterson has started the Premier League season. Now, don't get me wrong, I think he was a little bit shaky against Brentford. There were a couple of moments ducking underneath the ball, etc., which were poor. But other than that, Nathan Patterson has probably been Everton's best player, barring Alex Iwobi, over the last 4 or 5 games. And if it wasn't for Alex Iwobi just turning into prime, insert unbelievable name of midfielder here, then Nathan Patterson would have picked up a number of Man of the Match awards recently, because he has been very, very good. So you sort of forget that Seamus is there, don't you? Because firstly, he was out injured, at the start of the season. And next he ultimately has returned as Nathan Patterson has been doing a really, really good job. But there's definitely an argument to be had there that he should start in that back three alongside Connor Cody and James Tarkowski. Now, that obviously sends a specific message out to Michael Keane, which is that you're not good enough to be at this football club, because not only are you the last choice centre half, but even when it comes to that, you're getting, a right back's going to be played in there over you. I actually don't think he will start with Seamus Coleman. I think he will go with Michael Keane. Obviously, he brought Keane on for Holgate the other day, and I just think he will look at Keane as a more natural, big centre half. It's an away game. We might need that height. We might need that physicality, as per se. But I think there's certainly an argument that Seamus will be more reliable in that position. But then again, Seamus Coleman's biggest problem for me over the years has been his positioning at times, has been his, his faults of being positionally and letting players get in behind him too easily and letting players get down that side too easily. And I just don't know how that would work with him being a centre-half. He's not particularly big. He's not particularly dominant. Okay, he's a leader. He'll put himself about, but I just think he will go with Michael Keane tomorrow. One thing's for sure tomorrow is the midfield are going to have to be able to, put in some performance. Assuming it will be Amadou Onana and Alex Iwobi. Again, I can't see the manager going with a midfield 3 and changing the formation. Could he go with Tom Davis and Iwobi? Maybe, and have Tom Davis sitting and trying to break the play up. But I just think Onana, with his physicality, with his pace, with his passing ability, with his strength, I just think he'd suit that a little bit more. And we're going to rely on our midfield an awful lot tomorrow. because I feel like this is going to be a game where Leeds United are going to have most of the ball, and Everton are going to have to deal with that and be able to deal with that. And if our midfield are sort of slow and sluggish and not able to get to it and not really able to compete, then this will be an extremely difficult 90 minutes. So we're going to need a strong midfield, and the tactic tomorrow might be allow them to have the ball and try and hit them on the break. And if that's going to be the case, then we need Amadou Onana throwing those large challenges in and winning the ball in midfield, or Alex Iwobi running around and picking up the loose bits. Ned says he just ain't fast enough. If the plan is to sit and defend, then sure, we want to get up the pitch. Yeah, but Seamus Coleman isn't fast enough either. I get where you're coming from, and that's why, obviously, naturally, Ben Godfrey goes in there and Mason Holgate goes in there. But I honestly think if you asked Seamus Coleman and Michael Keane to have a 100-metre race, I'm not really convinced they'd win it, because Seamus Coleman's incredibly slow as well. He wasn't back in the day, but we're not back in the day. We're here and now, and he's not particularly fast. So, listen, it'll be difficult. It'll be a difficult game. It'll be a difficult fixture. Can Everton get something out of this? Absolutely, because Leeds are a beatable team. This is the same Leeds team, barring a couple of changes, and obviously they've lost a couple of big players as well, but the same Leeds team that Everton were battling with towards the back end of last season for relegation, the same Leeds team effectively that we turned over at Goodison Park. Now, okay, they've got a new manager and they've got a lot more confidence, and there's a lot to be said about confidence in football. It can turn a team from looking extremely poor to much, much better just by having a little bit of confidence. But for the most part, these are the same players, as I said, barring one or two, and they've lost one or two big players as well. And it's a game that, for me, Everton have simply got to get something out of. I said at the start of the stream, is it a must-win? And it's a bit premature to be having those conversations at the moment. But one thing I think it certainly is a must-not-lose, because it's another fixture that we can pick points up in. And the more and more that these fixtures are going by that we're not picking enough points up in the games we should be, the more and more sort of anxiety and, I suppose, upset that is running amongst the fan base, because of how, as I said, how hard last season was. Wonderlust says football is a psychological game as much as a physical one. Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. That Aronson is a problem, says Wormy. He is. He's a really, really good player, and he's settled in really, really well to the Premier League. Sort of destroying that old sort of concept of American players can't do it in the league, or American football players aren't very good. Well, Aronson stepped into the Prem and made it look like a piece of piss. So, Coleman shouldn't be near this team, says Will. Damien says, alright, Cam, sorry, I'm only joining, being busy. No worries, my mate, no worries. Us says, apparently Ghana imminent. I hope we get Diaz. I get the feeling he'll be on UKL. The Ghana situation, mate, again, I'm very much sort of just, I've clocked out of it, to be honest with you, because the amount of times I've read and been told that it's done, and then it's not done, and then it's definitely done, and then it's not done, and then it's 100% done, and then it's not done. I'm just bored of it now. And I actually think, if you want my honest opinion on Ghana Gay, I actually think Everton should have just absolutely put an end to it last week and said, listen, you've got whatever problem you've got with PSG. This is done now. We need another midfielder, so we're going to go and look at other targets, and we're going to go and, approach other targets and see if we can bring another target in. And then if we manage to bring somebody else in, and you manage to settle your issue with PSG and you become a free agent, then come back and talk to us, because we're wasting a lot of time on this now when we could have had somebody else in. Connor Crossland says, getting that first win is crucial. Absolutely. He says, get yourself a pint on me tomorrow, Cam. Also donated £5 to the team. Thank you very much, Connor. You didn't have to do that. I really, really do appreciate that, mate. I will buy myself a little bottle of rosé with that and enjoy it on the train up. When early said we're not even getting a train, we're getting a coach, so I don't even know why I said train. Frank says, hope Maupay starts tomorrow and Keane gets a chance. I'll miss the game as I'm going to watch my local team Middlesbrough versus Watford at Vicarage Road in Wembley right now, waiting for Tomas. Must win up the Toffees. Is right, Frank. Yeah, it's a game that, as I said, I don't think we can afford to lose. Must win probably is a little bit premature at this moment, but I don't think we can lose. I just don't think we can lose. Arguably applies to all sport. The psychology says Wormy, spot on. Star Wars is going for Pickford, Michalenko, Cody, Tarkowski, Patterson, Gray, Iwobi, Onana, Gordon, Maupay, Rondon would be experimenting. He won't go with 4-4-2. Or he won't go with 4 at the back. It will be 5 at the back, in my opinion. I get you, mate, dragging on, says Damien. Yeah, Donald says Garner is exactly the type of signing Everton needs. Garner, as in the Garner from Manchester United, not Adrissa Garner, I assume you mean. Ned says they should have moved on before, but it's most likely done now. Yeah, but we were told it was most likely done 2 or 3 weeks ago. Let's not forget, by the way, at the start of the day, we read a report from a journalist, I can't remember who it was, saying that the deal's broken down because the clubs can't come to an agreement. And then an hour later, there was another report from Le Equipe, who are a French newspaper, saying that there is a full agreement and the deal's being done. So, as I said, I'm bored with it. I'm bored with it because Everton are playing games of football and not winning. So, Garner, for me, I'm not arsed. I'm not interested. Move on to somebody else. The transfer window shuts on Thursday. We can't afford to be pissing about with PSG for Garner when we're not winning games of football. We should really be winning. That's my thoughts on it. I'd have the next guy, says Ned. Well, hopefully we found that in Onana. Mad that we spent 3-4 years looking to replace a Garner Gay and bring in the next Garner Gay. Then we were linked with bringing Garner Gay back, and we've managed to replace Garner Gay before bringing Garner Gay back when we couldn't replace Garner Gay for fucking 3 years when he left this football club, mate. Do you think Waddington deserves a goal tomorrow night? Onana and Iwobi with him in midfield? It won't happen, mate. It won't happen. I think Lewis Waddington is still very, very raw. Yes, he done well when he come on against Fleetwood, but we have to bear in mind that's a League One side. You know, and you know, will he be on the bench? I assume so. Will he be part of the squad? I assume so. May he come on? Maybe. But I don't think he'll start. Raz, I don't know who you support, me, but I really don't know why you're here. Liam says, lad in work whose mate is a local agent that looks after some of the cities up and coming is convinced Barkley is coming back, been telling me for weeks he's a copite with swell toes. Well, listen, I said 3-4 weeks ago, I said to Ned, he'll tell you, I said on the street 3 or 4 weeks ago, do not be surprised if Ross Barkley's an Everton player come the end of this transfer window. The fact that he's now terminated his deal with Chelsea makes that deal much, much easier to make if somebody wants to make it. And I still am convinced Ross Barkley will be an Everton player by the end of this window. Whether we want it to happen or not, that's what I think will happen. And Peter Reid, is it the Peter Reid or is it just somebody named Peter Reid? Says, a must win tomorrow with Liverpool and Arsenal coming up. Maupay has to start. Well, look, again, the general consensus around tomorrow is that it's a must win, and I think that's interesting because, as I said, it does feel like that even though we are only early on in the season. I mean, I'm going to put a poll in the live comments. So if you're watching live, which there is 86 people watching live, firstly, could you drop a like? That would be absolutely amazing if you could drop a like. And if you are new to the channel, please subscribe. That would be amazing as well. But secondly, I've just dropped a little poll in the comments to say, do you think this is a must win? Yes or no? As I said, for me, I think it's more of a must not lose. I think we're a little bit early for it to be a must win. But yeah, there you go. There's a poll. If you're logged into YouTube and you're watching live, get your votes in. Ned says he won't come back. We'll wait and see, mate. We'll wait and see. There's certain people at Everton Football Club that would have Ross Barkley back, in my opinion. And they are people with power. So we'll wait and see. I might be wrong. I'm not saying I've heard anything. This isn't coming from any information I've heard, by the way. I just don't trust Everton Football Club to not look at Ross Barkley being a free agent and think, do you know what? We'll have him back. I just don't. Maybe I'll be wrong, and you know what? I hope I am wrong because that will be a sign of change and a sign of good things. But yeah, anyway, let's get into our predicted starting 11 then. As I said, for me, this is a prediction, a thought of what I believe Frank Lampard will go with, rather than the 11 that I would choose myself. In goal, I'm going for Jordan. Obviously, no reason for Jordan to not start. Played the other day, of course, but again, fitness isn't an issue when it comes to goalkeepers. Left wing back, I am going for Vitaly Mykolenko. I know there's been a lot of conversation recently about Vitaly Mykolenko not really being a left wing back, and to be honest, I agree in that sense, but I do think Frank Lampard will remain with the 5 at the back formation. I don't think we're likely to see a change. and I don't think that we're likely to see Ruben Vinagre in there. I really, really don't, and ultimately that means Vitaly Mykolenko will start there. I actually think Vitaly Mykolenko has had a decent start to the season. He's had a couple of games that he's looked a little bit iffy, but I think he's been, solid. Should we say that? Back three, I'm going for Connor Cody, James Tarkowski, and I am going to go with Michael Keane. I know there's conversations about Seamus Coleman. I know Matty's convinced Seamus Coleman will start. He's just texted me saying that. I just don't think he will. I think if Seamus Coleman was going to start, we'd have seen him come on for Mason Holgate on Saturday. We didn't. We saw Michael Keane come on, and Michael Keane done a relatively good job. Okay, he didn't have much to do, but he done a relatively good job, and I think Michael Keane was played an awful lot towards the back end of last season, and also done an okay job as well, much better than what he had been doing previous to that. So I think Frank will go with Michael Keane. He may go with Seamus Coleman, and if he does, then fair enough. I don't know who I'd rather go with, to be honest. As I said, I think I'd rather go with Keane, because I just don't know. I know Michael Keane's not the most reliable player, and I know Michael Keane's not the best defender, but neither Seamus Coleman, if we're being honest with ourselves. Listen, we all love Seamus. He's been absolutely brilliant at Everton Football Club, and we all said numerous times last season it was time that he was replaced and we brought somebody else in. We've done that with Nathan Patterson. I just don't think we should shoehorn him in to the centre-back position, just because just because Mason Holgate's gone off injured when you've got Michael Keane there. If Seamus Coleman was clearly a much better defender than Michael Keane, then yes, maybe, but I'm just not convinced that he's big or physical enough to do that. And yeah, I don't know. I just think Frank Lampard will go with Michael Keane, and then right wing back, I'm going for Nathan Patterson. As I said, if I'm being honest, I thought Nathan Patterson has been very, very good this season. Oak is, we had a little bit of a shaky game on the weekend, although we did, he won 2-3 1-on-1s. He won 2 3-on-1s. You get what I mean? But as I said, other than that, he's been absolutely excellent this season. Whamey says, play the kid Reece. Not a chance for me, mate. Not a chance. Nowhere near ready. And we can't afford to be throwing points away and throwing lads in that aren't ready in important Premier League games. Will doesn't think Nathan Patterson's good enough, which is baffling considering he's been our best player, barring Alex Iwobi this season, but there you go. Into the midfield then, again, I'm going to go with the two. I'm going to go with the same formation. I'm going to go with Amadou Onana and Alex Iwobi. Hopefully, Amadou Onana is a little bit fitter coming into this one. Obviously, he couldn't play the entire 90 minutes at the weekend because he said he wasn't fit enough. He said he wasn't ready to do that, which is a little bit disappointing because, again, I think he evidently put a really, really good performance in on Saturday, and it would have been nice to have seen him stay on. Not that the substitution in itself made much of a difference, because I actually don't think Tom done too badly when he come on, but it would have nice to have seen Onana stay on. Iwobi obviously next to him, which is the most nailed on decision I think any of us will make. Alex Iwobi's been brilliant this year, and him being in this starting 11 is for me absolutely nailed on. And then I'm going to go with a front three of Anthony Gordon, Tamari Gray, and I'm going to go with Solomon Rondon. I think on Gordon's point, I think this is an interesting game for Anthony Gordon, because I think if Anthony Gordon starts this, then I don't think he'll leave Everton Football Club. I don't know why. There's not really much logic behind these thoughts, because obviously it's only Tuesday tomorrow and he's got till Thursday, and he could very much leave by Thursday. But I just think this game is almost like if he starts, I'm not too sure he'll go. If he doesn't start, which is a possibility, because he might play Gray, McNeil and Rondon or Maupay and in there, then that's when you start to think, oh, hang on, what's going on here? But I think he'll go with Gordon, who again had a much better game against Brentford. Obviously got his goal, which was a really, really good finish, and seemingly at the moment is performing, so he's in there. I'd go with Gray on the other side, because I don't think McNeil's done anywhere near enough to warrant being in there, and Gray, okay, hasn't been brilliant, but ultimately has has been better. Certainly in the last couple of weeks. I thought he was okay against Brentford. Had a couple of chances which he should have done much, much better with, but I thought he was okay. And I'm going to put Rondon up there as well. Listen, I want Dwight McNeil to start as much as we all do. But I think the fact that Rondon didn't start at the weekend and only come on with 15, 20 minutes to go, I think we're more likely to see Rondon start and then Dwight McNeil come on for Rondon. So you've got those two sort of natural centre forwards there. Again, that's just what I think Frank Lampard will go with. That's more the prediction rather than the what I would want. But if Maupay's fit enough, I'd have him in from the off. But I just don't think Frank Lampard will. If I'm being honest with you, I just don't think he will. But then again, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Let's have a little look at what the poll is saying then. 41 votes, 71% saying yes. Get your votes in. 102 people watching. Get your votes in. We're going to finish the stream in a moment. Get your votes in before the stream ends. If you are enjoying, by the way, please hit that like button. It only takes a second if you're new. Don't forget to subscribe. Tim's in, who's a Leeds fan. He says, evening and all. What's happening, Tim? Hope you're well. Star Wars Short says, we need to sign my boy Achim Fenwa. No, we don't. McNeil is being shite. He's petrified going in for the challenge. He hasn't had the greatest start to his career, but it's still very, very, very early on. Very, very early on. So I think we've got to give him time, like we have with everybody else. Fair play, says Ned. I think Frank Lampard will panic buy, says Eugene, on Thursday. Maybe, or your floor matters. I don't know where these conversations are going. Can Cannon be on the bench or the youngsters? Yeah, I'm sure he can be. He travelled with the team to Brentford, but he wasn't in the squad. I'm sure he'd have travelled down to Leeds as well. Whether or not he'll be in the squad is a completely different question. Big game for Maupay, says Edward. It's a debut for Maupay, isn't it? If he features. Onana to get his first goal, says Star Wars. Hopefully, mate. Hopefully. Why we throw away games doing all sorts of other nonsense, says Wormy. Patterson is a young lad, give him the time, he's got something there. I think Patterson's been absolutely sound. I really, really do. Anyway, we are going to finish the poll there. We'll get the results in a second. I think Nathan Patterson's been brilliant. There you go. 71% saying yes, 28% saying no. So the vast majority believing that this is a must-win tomorrow, which is interesting because I think that more shows the nerves and anxiety given what we've just been through last season and the fact that we haven't won a Premier League game of football yet, rather than it's only the start of the season, etc. What for me this is a game we absolutely can't lose because it's another game that we should be picking up points in. But look, there you go. We're going to leave it there. We'll wait and see tomorrow. I'll be making that trip down to Elland Road and probably losing my voice again. As you can tell, I've literally only just got it back because earlier on today when we done the live stream I had no voice still, so I've just got it back and I'm going to go and lose it again tomorrow. But what we do for this football club, if you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Massive thank you to everybody for watching live. If you're watching is in the live comments, really do appreciate it. If you want us a YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below. We'll get involved with as many of them as possible. We'll be back late tomorrow night with the instant match reaction and the player rating, so look out for those. And yeah, let's hope Everton can find our first Premier League win of the season, because we really need it. Massive thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you later.